Sure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this fine midday with the beautiful clear blue skies out there. We're very happy to have Dr. Julia Williams presenting for us today. Julia is the author of Making Changes in STEM Education, the Change Makers Toolkit. She's been working with the MOC workshop, the Making Academic Change Happen workshop. She's the PI on the NSF Revolutionizing Engineering Department's Participatory Action Research Project. And she's a faculty member in the Department of English at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, and she's very active in the Keen Network, and we're very much looking forward to her talk today about EM in humanities, social sciences, and arts, educational, and that very different context than engineering. So
sure.
With that, very much looking forward to your thoughts, Julia.
Okay, thanks so much, Pierre, and I'm very happy to be joining you virtually from the campus of Rose-Hulman, where it is a beautiful sunny day in the 70s, and I'm very much looking forward to spring. Before I open up my slides, I just want to point out two things. There is a link in the chat, and Micah, maybe you could refresh that, or Pierre could. There is a Google Drive that I set up that contains my deck of slides and some other materials that I'll talk about today that might be useful to you. And before we get started, I also would like everyone to have handy somewhere some kind of writing implement, piece of paper and a pen, a pencil, notes on your phone, laptop, tablet, just a place to write, because as the English professor, I'm going to have you do some writing. Okay, right. So let me get my slide started, and then we will get the show on the road. Yes, as always, trying to find my slides is always the tricky part. Just hang on one second, if you would. Show all my windows. Excellent. Okay. So I'm starting this presentation today about EM, the entrepreneurial mindset, and how we can apply that in the humanities, social sciences, and the arts. But I'm also trying to accommodate other attendees today who might be interested in this subject, but coming from an engineering, science, computer science perspective. So whatever your discipline, wherever you're coming to this from, you're welcome. I'm showing you a piece of art by Thomas Hart Benton, the American artist. And in the 1920s, he traveled across the US, often painting, what the typical Americans were engaged with at the time. And, he really enjoyed capturing the variety of human experience, including the rise of technologies like electric power generation, machine operation, and flight, which you can see in this painting. Now, I think this painting is quite illustrative of, how the glorification of modern technology can be done through an artistic medium. And that medium is very particular. It's egg tempera on wood. That would have been a painting technique very familiar to medieval and Renaissance artists as well. So this painting really shows how intrinsically linked engineering and art are, technology and the humanities and social sciences, which is a great place for us to start today. Because I want to explore the question of how entrepreneurial mindset, which is the focus of the Keen Entrepreneurial Engineering Network, how that's aligned with the goals and values of the humanities, social sciences, and the arts, and how those of us in those fields working with engineering collaborators, how we can really work for the improvement of student learning and faculty teaching. Now, throughout the seminar, you can put questions into the chat. There's also a Q&A button either at the top or bottom of your screen. So feel free to use that if you hear me say something you think, I do not know what Julie is talking about, or if you have a question to relate. And I know that Micah will be managing that, or Pierre will, someone will, and we'll get your questions answered. Near the end of the talk, I'll be opening up the microphone so everyone who wants to speak and has other things to discuss will be able to do so. Okay, So here's the point at which I'm asking you to do some writing. I'd like you to consider a course that you teach regularly, all right? For my case, that would be first-year composition to engineering, science, math, and computer science students. I always like to start, any session that I do with a chance for you to reflect on the topic that we're going to explore in the session itself. Now, because I see the significance of entrepreneurial mindset to improving student learning and faculty teaching, I think it's great for you to apply that in the initial stages to the course that you teach. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to write. I'd like you to think about or write about what one or two aspects of this course you're thinking of would you like to change? And how do you think adopting a change of any kind, change in an assignment, change in your syllabus schedule, any kind of change, how that could help improve your students' learning? Now, this may be something like an assignment, right? Or maybe it's a topic that you've always included in this course, but it never lands with students the way you want it to. And perhaps you considered changing a problem set in order to get right to a skill that students really need because they struggle with it. Now, because I teach first-year writing, as I said, they often struggle with providing their peers with substantial feedback on written drafts of assignments. They're willing usually to, highlight a missed comma, but can they really talk about how the piece of writing affected them? So I'd like my students to encourage or to develop skills in the areas of peer feedback. And I'm thinking about ways in which we could accomplish that. So this reflection isn't formal. I'm not going to grade your grammar. So if you want to make a bulleted list, jot down some ideas, no problem. Just a few things that you think, one or two aspects that you'd like to change and how you think adopting a change could improve students' learning. And I'll be quiet here for a minute. Okay. So you've got in your head, of course, you regularly teach an aspect or two you think need to be changed or could be changed. So the starting point for this is this idea about entrepreneurial mindset. And Pierre asked me to join you today virtually to share the work that we've been doing at Rose-Hulman with the current Entrepreneurial Engineering Network and how our campus has been able to bring EM into a variety of courses and departments. We are similar, Rose-Hulman and Minds, because we're focused on engineering education. We don't offer degrees in humanities or social sciences or the arts. But I think what's interesting is that Rose-Hulman has been a partner with Keene from a very early stage. We were one of the first partners with Keene, and we've learned quite a lot about EM during the years of our partnership. If you check the Engineering Unleashed website, you'll see that Keene defines EM as that, well, I'll let you get it. How about that? Now, when I look at that definition, I see embedded there a clear role for educators in engineering contexts like Minds and Rose-Hulman, who teach in the humanities, social science, and arts disciplines, because a focus on solving social problems is right in our wheelhouse here in the HSSA. And I think, solving societal problems, social problems, that's what we hope to encourage students to do. And our efforts to address human challenges. Those seem very appropriate to humanities, social science, and arts disciplines. But I'll tell you, when I first heard that phrase, entrepreneurial mindset or entrepreneurial engineering, I had a very different idea about what that meant. I had this in mind. maybe you thought this too. You heard the word entrepreneurial. My mind went to images of, tech startups, a group of bros sitting around conjuring up the latest app in order to sell their work to the highest bidder. But I can assure you that is not what entrepreneurial mindset actually is. And the image here is definitely at odds with the work that we've been doing. I think that Keen really helped our understanding of entrepreneurial mindset by then defining it or specifying it using what we call the 3 C's. By looking at curiosity, connections, and creating value, I think that really opened up what entrepreneurial mindset could mean. And I think that these particular areas, curiosity, connections, and creating value, they're often areas that engineers acknowledge that they need help with, and another place where the humanities, social sciences, and the arts can offer help and expertise. Let me just emphasize with these. Curiosity, we're talking about the broader world, multiple perspectives, analysis, and critical thinking. Those things seem very appropriate to HSSA. And how about the integration of knowledge through connections? Yes, I think that's where we are also able to offer ideas and help. And creating value, not just monetary value, it's really about understanding stakeholders and understanding the impact on communities. I think that's a place where HSSA, Humanities, Social Sciences, and the Arts is able to play a very important role. Well, let me talk a little bit then about the development of EM-focused courses at Rose-Hulman. I think if you take a look at all the courses that have been developed under that umbrella, and I'm going to talk about some of them, not all, but I think that you see very clearly that with the support of Keen, we'll be able to undertake course development and bring the EM focus into those courses. The intersection of the humanities, the social sciences with engineering is a feature of many of these courses. Now, I'm going to focus on courses that were developed right around 2014. And I'll tell you that we had a big course development initiative in 2014, and we're now entering another phase of that course development that I'll talk about a little bit later. So in 2014-ish, there, in response to a campus-wide call for proposals, there were 14 course development proposals that were funded, more that were submitted, but not all were funded. And these covered numerous engineering, science, computer science, humanities, and social science disciplines. Excuse me a minute. These seasonal allergies got me this week for sure. Okay, so these courses needed in their proposals, or the ones who proposed the courses needed to explicitly engage the 3 C's. And I'll show you in the examples I've got how curiosity, connections, and creating value were aligned to the learning outcomes for each course. Let's see, Micah or Dane or Pierre, I see there's some chat. Is there anything in the chat I need to address before I go on?
No.
Nope, it was just us posting those links and some communications between each other.
All righty, thank you so much. So let's take a look at several of these course descriptions. And this deck, as I said, is in the Google Drive folder. So if you want to look at these more in more detail, please, I'd invite you to do so. So this example is drawn from the biomedical engineering department. Dr. Alan Chu, he redesigned his biomedical instrumentation course to leverage the 3 C's to improve student learning in that particular context. Now you can see here that he revised some of his customary course components like the brainstorming worksheet and the literature review in order to incorporate the 3 C's. I'll just point out to you that in order to encourage his students' curiosity, he sent them out to talk to members of their own families about their medical history and the shortcomings of existing technologies they relied on. So student goes out to talk to grandpa about his knee replacement, or another student talks to a family member who is using any kind of insulin monitoring device. Now, I think you can imagine the kind of impact that such a task could have on a student's conception of biomedical technologies, moving them away from like a textbook notion very abstract, not very relevant, an abstract notion of biomedical devices, and toward a curiosity about how these devices serve or don't serve their patients, how they inflict pain on their patients, and these are their family members. So that creates a very different context in which to understand biomedical instrumentation. So this is an example of EM focus using the 3 C's as a mechanism to help students with their learning. Let's see, here's another example. So also a kind of cross-disciplinary course between biomedical engineering and mechanical engineering, course on creativity and creative techniques. So the incorporation of the 3 C's was the means by which 2 other professors were able to bring the use of creative techniques into design education. So for Professors Livesey and White, engineering design is a creative process, and they were encouraging students to cultivate their own creativity by studying creativity in a wide variety of non-engineering disciplines, right? Such as graphical art and music production, artistic techniques. You'll see paintings by Picasso here. They, kind of studied Picasso in his various phases from the blue, all the way to the end of his life. Now, in this way, by focusing on creativity, they were able to show that, show to students that there were connections between these seemingly disparate fields. So in this case, they were able to use the keen EM focus in order to open up the definitions of what we mean by creativity and what we mean by engineering design. Now, I'm not going to neglect my own colleagues in humanities and social sciences. In this particular Keen funded development by Dr. Sarah Summers, this member of my own department was funded to create this course on writing grants and funding ideas. So primarily a writing course, but also with a focus on identifying things that might be useful for students to find additional funding for in order to accomplish. So she proposed this grant writing course. This could help students refine project ideas and develop their writing skills as they sought funding for these particular projects. Now, there was a choice in this particular context. Students could either take an idea they had developed in Dr. John Mirth's additive manufacturing course. Yep, that could be one of the projects that they work on, or they could even pursue something that matched with their own particular educational professional objectives. As I recall, there was a student in the class who was trying to find external funding for a particular community service project that he was engaged in. Other students pursued other kinds of personal projects for the grant funding ideas. So I think that the 3 C's were very much in evidence in this particular course. And you'll see at the bottom of the slide that, well, at the top of the slide, Dr. Summers talked about, where curiosity, connections, and creating value were going to play in the course objectives, and also how they impacted her as an instructor in the fact that she could make connections with her colleagues, and she could also pursue her own curiosity about alternative assessment strategies like specs grading. So the thing I really liked about this particular course is that students were encouraged to, explore funding opportunities for projects they wish to do, but they also created value for the community of Terre Haute with funding organizations like the United Way. So in that way, I thought it was very effective as an incorporation of EM. Now, at Rose-Hulman, we do have a sustainability program called the Home for Environmentally Responsible Engineering, or HERE. And this funded project was actually a course sequence as the first year curriculum for, first year curriculum for HERE students. They take a required course in writing, the RH 131. They take a design course, the introduction to design, and they also take an introduction to sustainability course. So this course, even before it was put into the Keen development, it's in a collaboration between the 3 departments, chemistry, civil engineering, and HSSA. And the focus of the course is on sustainable design. So the professors involved here proposed that the 3 courses they taught would employ the 3 C's, in each of those courses. So students could make connections among various sustainability issues, create value by formulating solutions to, campus-based, regional, global problems, and foster their curiosity. So by employing the same framework across the 3 courses, the professors work to show students the interrelatedness of all 3 disciplines, all 3 courses. And they also emphasize the importance of curiosity, connections, and creating value for sustainable solutions for environmental challenges. And I think for us at Rose-Hulman, we often feel like students see our courses as very siloed. So in this case, the cross-disciplinary effort helped illustrate to students, no, this is all connected, for sure. Okay, let me go and show you one more. And this one doesn't sit inside of the HSSA department, but you'll see that it touches onto some of the key issues that we like to tackle inside of our department. So this is a collaboration between the civil, electrical, and mechanical engineering departments. It's a coordinated course about designing appropriate technologies for developing countries. And it was really helping students understand that when you go off to do a project like, Engineers Without Borders or some other kind of development project, you have to understand or attempt to understand another country's culture. So I'd like you to notice that, the design of appropriate technologies was not considered a one-way street where the students are delivering a technology for the benefit of the community. The intention here is really for the students to develop new insights and understanding of non-US contexts. There was even a travel component for this class, so students could interact with stakeholders face-to-face in their own communities. Definitely a pre-pandemic kind of project. Okay, so I've shared 5 examples of EM-focused course development proposals that were funded in 2014. Now, each of these courses was taught in the following academic year. Development took place in summer of 2014, and then they were taught throughout the rest of the academic year. And they continue to be taught after the funding ended. As a result, these courses were instrumental in bringing numerous faculty to a focus on EM, and they continue to engage with Keen, with many of them submitting cards to the Engineering Unleashed platform, as well as sharing their work with members of the network at the Keen National Conference. I do want to talk, though, about one more place where that entrepreneurial, that E-ship word shows up again. And we do have an Escalate program, an entrepreneurialism program, first-year living learning community for students here at Rose-Hulman. The engineering student community actively learning advanced technical entrepreneurship. I did not make up that acronym. That is not anything of my doing, but I'll just point out that this is not a Keen course per se, but the fact that entrepreneurism is introduced in this particular course, which is a first-year writing course, shows how important it is for the writing courses to have to contribute to the development of entrepreneurial mindset across our campus. So the living learning community, students are focused on entrepreneurship. And as I said, it's much more in line with maybe a traditional concept of E-ship, but it does bring multiple disciplines together in teaching and learning related to EM. So this is Dr. Hartnett's course, and he developed this focus on the culture of entrepreneurism. He taught this, actually he's taught it for 5 years for the Escalate project, and it focuses on the culture of entrepreneurism. I think what's great about this is students self-select into the Escalate program. And so they're already receptive to the topic, and they have maybe a more productive first-year writing experience because it's a topic that they're really interested in. All right, let me take a turn here. We've talked about course development and how EM is being brought into, conversation, collaboration between multiple disciplines and departments on our campus. That another part of the course development was a requirement that the course developers, the professors, also created a Keen card. And Pierre and Micah, I'm not sure how much you talked about the Keen cards, but I wanted to just touch on that just briefly. The Keen cards that are on the Engineering Unleashed platform, they're meant to be resources for members of the community, and that is, faculty who are at Keen schools, but also those resources available to anyone who wants to go on the platform and use them. And they're really instrumental in helping people adapt course topics, assignments, and other materials, and bringing the EM focus into their classes. This is a way that Keen accomplishes one of the things about it that I think is most important, which is the network piece. The Keen resources, cards, they are all part of this work to create a community of people who are all doing this work. It helps them connect with faculty they might never have had a chance to collaborate with across disciplines, across ranks, across all sorts of, some of the siloed divides we see in STEM education in the US at this time. So in this way, when the faculty on our campus developed those courses and then put their cards on, suddenly they had an outlet for disseminating their work that goes probably beyond what you might do if you were, say, submitting a conference paper or a journal article. It's definitely a peer-to-peer kind of network, and it helps faculty find resources they might not have access to otherwise. So if you go into the Engineering Unleashed platform and you look under resources, look at cards, you can search many different topics for cards. So if you search terms like writing, philosophy, art, other HSSA disciplines, you're going to find Keen faculty who are aligning their teaching to EM in order to encourage students to develop their curiosity, their connections between disciplines, and their ability to create value for stakeholders. I think that the result are courses that actually stimulate students' creativity, their sense of responsibility to their communities, and their ability to take on challenging technical problems like sustainability. And those problems need to be addressed to ensure that human flourishing, for today and in the future. And so I pulled one card that I thought had some intersections across different disciplines throughout. This is a course that does an engineering fact check on a science fiction novel that you may be familiar with. You may have seen the I think it's the Matt Damon movie adapted from it, The Martian. And so what I like about the cards is that they are very straightforward, non-jargony. They identify learning objectives that the course or the card is supposed to meet. There are often resources, more frequently resources that you can use and adapt to your own course. Things like a syllabi, an assignment description, even assessment on how you might, assess what students are doing in that work. Let me also encourage you to think about non-course related or non-teaching resource related items that are available on Engineering Unleashed. I think one of the most interesting developments of the past several years has been the cultivation of Engineering Unleashed faculty development. So faculty development, as I think we would agree, every faculty member everywhere needs an opportunity to develop their skills in order to remain, up to date, also recharged in the classroom. So the Engineering Unleashed faculty development thread is growing every year. You'll see just these three that I pulled. One of them, the Integrating Curriculum with EM, or the ICE workshop, is a hands-on 1 week faculty development opportunity for faculty to meet with people who are bringing EM into their classrooms and adapt EM into their current class or make a new class. So it's very teaching focused. The middle one there, Unleashing Academic Change, is one that I am working on with a couple of colleagues from Rose-Hulman. It's not teaching focused. It's a change workshop helping anyone who would like to join us to target a particular change they want to make. Could be changes in a course sequence or changing in a curriculum or changes more broadly. We were meeting just yesterday with attendees from last summer who were working on changes like creating a mechanical engineering concentration in their department, or changing the way they teach their design sequence, or incorporating other changes into their department or to their college. You'll see that the registration is closed for that one and for the Thrive faculty mentorship, but these are being offered on a rolling basis. And so if you take a look at one that is of interest to you, even things like DEI, incorporating DEI in classes, designing your ideal academic life, they're all there for you to participate in. So I'd encourage you to take a look at those. Okay. Ooh, I've talked a lot. I want to take you now back to that reflection you started with at the beginning of our time together. I asked you at that time to reflect on one or two aspects of your course that you think could be changed in order to improve student learning. And now that you've heard more about curiosity, connections, and creating value, I wondered, is there a way in which that aspect of your course that you reflected on would be improved if you could encourage students to be more curious, if you could help them to discover more connections, or if you could help them learn how to create value for stakeholders? So I'm going to ask you to take a few more notes, reflect a little bit longer, and then at the end of your time, which I'll give you just a couple of minutes, I'm going to ask for some volunteers. If you'd like to talk about the aspect of your course you'd like to change and how you think one of the three C's, all three of the C's, could help you in making that change, you can raise your hand in the Zoom window, and I will ask for some volunteers. We'll open up your mic and we'll be able to make that happen, okay? So just a couple of minutes. That'll allow me to take another drink of water. One or two aspects of your course that could be changed, improved in order to help your students be more curious, see more connections, and create value. Okay. I hope that there are some ideas out there in the Zoom room, all of you great participants. And I'll just ask Dane if if you see a hand, or I don't know how you'd like to do this, but I'm happy to, just open up the conversation about how this might work for your class or in your particular circumstance.
If any of the attendees want to contribute, you can just use the raise hand icon down at the bottom of the webinar, and then we'll give you the ability to speak here if you raise your hand.
And so the example that I used when we did that reflection was my own writing class, where I want to encourage students to be better at peer feedback, give more substantive feedback. And I think that's really important it's really important for students to develop their sense of curiosity about the writer who is producing this piece of work. For many students, they don't have a really good sense of other people's perspectives and how they could share that perspective or their own perspective with others. So I emphasize their curiosity about each other as a way to get them down the road with better peer feedback.
So Julia, if it's okay, I'll chime in and share with you what I was thinking with regard to your reflection exercise here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things I'd love to improve in my course is when I assign, a larger like design project in a course, the students invariably dive into the technical, and they want to solve the problem, and what hardware and all this stuff, instead of what I would love for them to do at the beginning of a design problem is to, who's the customer? How do I connect with this customer? How do I create value for this customer? And really solve the real problem, rather than, we need a 5.5 liter V8 engine, and so that's something I've always struggled with throughout my career in teaching design.
Sure.
Is that, engineering students want to just, they just want to take a little project statement from the professor and say, okay, well, that's what we got to do, and then go, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of our responsibilities as educators is to not just encourage, but scaffold what it means to elicit customer requirements and stakeholder values and feedback. I think part of it is, the question I would pose to you, Pierre, I mean, you probably already do this, but, have they met a real stakeholder for this design, for this design project? Do they have the skills to listen to what the customer is saying? Because collecting information from the customer, not just about, how fast does it need to go and, what kind of engine output it needs, but where are they using it? Mm-hmm. What experiences have they had in the past with, other technology that has failed them? I think that's so valuable. And I think that's squarely within the domain of EM. How have you been tackling it? I'm curious.
Yeah. So I've been doing scaffolding and having them, putting in some requirements, and so they do the requirements, but it's the mindset I want to change.
Yeah.
They'll do my requirements, but their brain is still already geared toward, it's so geared on the technical. Right? Yeah. That they want to bypass all this stuff and they just want to check off my requirements,
Yeah.
And so I really want to try and infuse in them that customer focused, that EM mindset that King is after, to try and help them, actually, have a better idea of the problem, have a better solution outcome, and eventually, like you're saying, I think the second part of your question was, of your reflection was, how would this benefit the students? And to me, that makes better, more successful engineers.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'll give some support to students right now, because we're now asking them to do something totally new that we throw to them senior year and say, okay, everything you've done so far, now do something different. So hopefully there's a way that we can scaffold it, not just in your course, but make that something that they expect to see something of freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, because I sympathize in a way, when I ask students to approach their writing differently, it's not comfortable.
Mhm.
As faculty, we don't do the stuff that's uncomfortable. And so they don't either. But a simple thing that I have found really valuable is using a book by Edgar Schein called Humble Inquiry, because I think part of their challenge is not having advanced or even moderately advanced listening skills. Engineer tells you the solution to your problem. So that might be an option, making sure that students see it before senior year in some context, and better listening skills. I hope that helps.
Those are good ideas. I appreciate those. Thanks. And I'm going to look up that book, Humble Inquiry.
Humble Inquiry by Edgar Schein, Schein. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, second edition with a Peter Schein.
Probably a son, probably a child. Yeah, exactly.
Even better, $10, Julia. That's
Oh, bargain. It's a bargain. For sure.
Oh,
And you
I
can
gotta,
even,
I gotta be quiet and leave the opportunity for other folks to pick your brain here.
you can even go on YouTube and see him being interviewed by probably his son. And, that's one way to do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear from others who have some ideas they want to toss around with regard to making a change that could bring curiosity, connection, and creative value into your own course. I saw the chat bit about doing some card workshops, so I think it's a great thing too. Dane,
Yeah.
did you have something you were jumping in on?
Nope, I just wanted to reiterate, if you guys
Okay.
want to contribute, you can do the raise hand thing at the bottom of the webinar and we can give you ability to talk. Or if you're too shy, you can certainly put some ideas in the chat window or the Q&A
Absolutely.
feature for us. So feel free to communicate however you'd like.
And this includes students. I know we have some students on board, so I know Julia's been framing the question from the instructor point of view, but from the students that are joining us today, if there are some things you'd like to see, or some ideas got sparked about things that you think would be exciting additions to courses, feel
Sure.
free to chime in as well.
Yeah, one area where I think EM has particular relevance from the student point of view is engineering competition teams and what students need to execute in order to do well in those competitions. I worked a couple of years ago with a former professor at Rose-Hulman, and we did an adaptation of the engineering skills as defined by Keene and put them into a competition team format. So that did I thought, a nice job of showing that these are also relevant to student projects, competition projects in particular, because all the specifications for the student competition teams come from outside of the campus context. They're designed by ASME or IEEE or AICHE. So there's a real, a real opportunity there to develop an entrepreneurial mindset in that particular area.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I think there's a question from Bryce. Thank you, Bryce. I owe you one. Let's see. Background question. If it's appropriate, how were the 3 C's developed and why those words and not others? Great question. I wish I had a prize to offer to Bryce for that question, because the 3 C's were not a part of the Keene, language about what entrepreneurial mindset is or was. In fact, at its very start, it was very much the start a business. This is entrepreneurialism. And I'm not sure exactly where the 3 C's came from. I'll be honest, but I just realized that sometime in the late 2000s, suddenly they were there. And they were also not very well defined. But as time went on, as other keen partners, faculty, programs started to work with curiosity, connections, and creating value, they added language that I think makes more sense. Could there be other words? Probably. Are there other words right now? No, they're not. So that's what we're working with. One challenge we had, and Bryce, I'm not sure if you're a faculty member or a student, but for faculty members, the challenge was, okay, you tell us it's curiosity, connections, and creating value. How do we assess those things? And in that Google Drive, I've got 2 documents that might be useful in that regard if you're a faculty member. Let's see. Faculty member. Thank you, Bryce. How do I assess a student's curiosity? What does it mean that I'm going to try to assess students' ability to make connections? So at Rose-Hulman, we actually did a project. This is back when I was the institutional research director. But we went through and we defined curiosity, connections, and creating value for Rose-Hulman. We thought it was really important if we were going to assess those 3 things. We couldn't just assess words, 3 words. We had to assess statements of performance. So in that Google Drive, there is a diagram that shows how we conceptualized the 3 C's and where they overlap. And we have statements, what we call performance criteria, essentially statements of performance for each of those. Now, the key does not require anyone to use those statements. You could make your own, but we just felt very strongly we needed, performance indicators to help us define that and assess. Sorry. Bryce, does that help with your question? Or, okay, great. Bryce, what's your field? Hopefully you can put that up there while I am a writing person, just like me. Yeah, great. Yeah, I was just at the American Society for Civil Engineering conference last week at their education summit. And Bryce, I could not tell you how many people went on and on about how important communication and writing are to civil engineering students. So, I mean, I think it's a great indicator of how valued we are within engineering circles, for sure. Exactly. Good. All right. Well, I'm going to move on to what is essentially my last slide, but then I want to open it up for other kinds of questions related to whatever y'all want to talk about. I wanted to take a moment to talk and give a shameless plug for the book that Pierre referred to at the start of our session today. I'm sorry, the allergies are bad. Anyway, so coming out in early June, this is a book, as you see the title, Making Changes in STEM Education. This is actually a practical toolkit based on research, as well as work I've done with Keen and with the National Science Foundation, as a way to help people gain a set of practical tools they can use to make change. And I think Keen is a really great advocate for change in STEM education. As the story I've heard many times, that Bob Kern, the founder of the Kern Family Foundation, he was disappointed in the mindset of the engineers he hired. So he single-handedly, after he sold his company Generac to another entity, used that money to affect change in how engineers are educated. And I think Keen has had a tremendous impact on engineering education for a lot of us. Yeah, which is great. Well, Pierre?
Yeah, I think one last shot, if anyone has any questions or would like any
Sure.
comments from Julia before we let her go.
Before my voice totally gives out.
No
And
worries. I appreciate you working through it. I too get the seasonal allergies, so I know what you're going through.
It's bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you, Julia. We very much appreciate your presentation today as we embark and are now on our journey as a keen partner.
Yeah, exactly.
We appreciate the help and the insights from you. And I will share with you that we had the vast majority of our humanities and social sciences folks with us today, including their department head at the seminar, attending synchronously with you. And of course, recorded it so other folks who missed it or were busy and had a time conflict can review it later.
Right.
So I have no doubt that your message resonated with many of your attendees today. So thank you once
Cool.
again, and
You're
everyone,
welcome.
have a great day, and thanks again, Julia.
Yeah, sure thing, Peter. Thanks for inviting me. And I'm really happy to encourage the humanities, social sciences, and arts faculty. This has been a really important collaboration opportunity for us here at Rose-Hulman. It's brought us into really great conversations with our colleagues across campus. So I look forward to hearing, how it goes for y'all as well. Okay.
All right. Thanks again, Julia.
Okay. Thanks,
And
Dane.
thank you
Thanks,
everyone for
Micah.
attending.
Yep.